Good morning to all honorable members of this committee, the Public Enterprises, and everybody. I am just intending to give you 1 minute to settle so that we start our meeting. Yes, good morning to honorable members once again. I want to declare this meeting open. I welcome all of you.
Recording in progress.
Normal portfolio committee session. Also want to welcome our guest, the executive and the board of of Alexkor, and we'll be getting a briefing on the progress of the turnaround strategy from Alexkor. And good morning to also the department led by the minister or the deputy minister. Perhaps let me say the ministry, because I don't know who is here among them, whether it's a deputy or deputy minister, but you will get that from the secretary when he presents the apologies. Mr. Muchumi.
Good morning, Chair and honorable members. The apologies I've received is from Mr. Buthelezi. He won't be able to join us for today's meeting today. And from the minister, I'm thinking the minister is in cabinet. However, the deputy minister is leading the delegation with Ms. Trishka Anakom, who is the chairperson of the board. They are the ones leading the delegation, chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Muchumi. Honorable members, that is the lineup that we have in this presentation by Alexkor. Is led by the chairperson of the board, the interim chairperson of the board, Dr. Anakom, and then we also have the CEO also being part of the interim CEO, part of the delegation. And the deputy minister is the person who will be doing an overview. Welcome, honorable minister, to our portfolio committee. Without wasting any time, I would like to give over to the deputy minister to provide us with the overview and then hand over to those who will be making a presentation, either the chair or the CEO. Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me put on my camera. I hope I'm visible now. Thank you very much for the welcome, and but also to further indicate the minister's apology. Yes, his cabinet, but also he is leading a delegation of the department to the select committee where they are discussing the unbundling of Eskom. So he's both in the cabinet, but also attending a select committee meeting. So that's how we divided ourselves, that I'll then come here and then he'll then lead the Eskom delegation that side. Chair, the matter before us, it's a report by Lesco, in terms of progress in as far as the implementation of the turnaround plan since the board came into being to come and what we could then say is a fix the situation in Alexkor. The board came in February 2022 to come and really help us get Alexkor back into track, back into a functional entity, but also as a going concern. And they will obviously, as their report then indicate the milestones since they arrived, what they did, what were the plans, which plan has the plans yielded results. And indeed, since this board, interim board came in, there are positive results that one can see, but there are still a number of challenges nonetheless, because as you'll all know, that the Alexkor was one of those that was part of the state capture entities, and just at the point when this board came in, it has collapsed. It was on its knees and almost ground zero. And then I think we are coming to present a positive report with whatever challenges that are still there, that they will then be able to allude to. Secondly, obviously, is the land claims issue, also how they are navigating themselves through it, and what are the obligations of Alexkor on the claimants in as far as the company is concerned, and the establishment of the joint venture, which the claimants are now participants. So they will also be indicative of that particular environment and what is it that they are doing to really begin to steer the ship in the right direction. And their term of office obviously is expiring next year, February. And then by that time, whatever are the outstanding issues, they will have really be able then to say, here is Alexkor now in a better shape, better than when they came in, but the progress will then be indicative as they give the report, including the financials. And obviously the issues of the annual reports and what have you will then come back to you before the end of the year, where we'll then be able to then indicate there's an AGM planned to deal with the 2022 outstanding matters. They are not part of the agenda today, but the next week, that AGM of 2022 finally is happening, because the AG report was only released in August, and why the delay? We're all waiting for that audit report and audit opinions, so that they could then begin to work on those particular issues. The 2023 will hopefully, the DG is indicating they will then be able to give a report end of October with a view to have an AGM in November. And both are delayed as a result of the situation that was found as an Alexkor situation, and with a collapse of systems, collapse of governance, collapse of activities. And then we hope therefore that as members engage on this report, they will then have to reflect on where we come from, where we are now, and the way forward. Definitely the management and the board will be able to indicate on those things. With that, Chair, let me then, as you said, the chairperson of the Alexkor, Dr. Trisha Nekom, is here. She will be able then to do the introduction, and then followed by the CEO, Trevor Fowler, who will then be able then to give the presentation itself. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairperson. Should I proceed?
Yes, ma'am, continue.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chairperson, honourable members, the Deputy Minister and team from the department. and my colleagues from Alexkor. Chair, I think that we do have a good news story to tell. As the Deputy Minister indicated, we really were faced with what seemed like insurmountable mountains to climb, and there is still considerable work to be done, but we think that there is a really positive story about being on the road to fixing something that was very broken. And I think we've said to you before that we certainly think we're out of ICU at this stage. I'm going to, because we want to show where we've come from, just recap very quickly what the state of affairs was when the interim board was appointed. And the reason for that is just to be able to reflect on the fact that we do have a functioning board now. We do have a reconstituted pooling and sharing joint venture board where representatives of the CPA who were duly elected were appointed to serve as directors, so they are no longer represented by non-executive directors who have no link into the community at all. We exceeded the production targets that had been set, and when we last saw you, we were still battling with long outstanding debt and were in a very dire financial position. So after I've presented where we've come from, Professor Fowler will present what the picture is now, and we do also want to share with you the improvement in the financial position, and the acting CFO, Ms. Lebu Akalaka, will present that. So very quickly to recap where we came from. Apologies, I'm having difficulty getting it onto full screen. I hope you can see my screen now. Please shout if the screen disappears, because I have got load shedding at the moment. So the purpose of this is to focus on what the turnaround has been, as well as some of the highlights of where we are right now in terms of performance and our financial position.
Is the screen visible? I don't have it.
I will try again.
Other participants, can they confirm? That's better, got it.
Thank you. So I was indicating that this presentation, I will really extremely quickly, because there's nothing particularly new in it, recap where we have come from, the relevance of it just being that it allows you to see what the turnaround really is, and just to underline that we aren't out of the woods at all. It has been extremely difficult to get to where we are, and that has only happened as a result of extraordinary dedication to ensure that we get out of the woods. So the reason for recapping and reminding that this was the pooling and sharing joint venture is a product of a land claim And there's a deed of settlement and unanimous resolution that you're all very familiar with. But we're now in 2023. And one of the reasons that we were very determined to ensure that we could interact with the CPA is so that the CPA can take its own decisions about the future it envisages, and that we have institutional arrangements that are fit for purpose. And that is really the first very big significant development, that we do now have a PSJV with community representatives who were granted the land and land mining concession, which was handed over to the Richtersveld Mining Company in 2011. The mining company itself still needs to be regularized at the CIPC, but they are designated representatives, and they are representing, as a result of a court order, the RMC on the PSJV board. And you're all well aware of the fact that it's the pooling and sharing joint venture that is responsible for all marine and land mining, and that we were appointed in February 2022. What we found, and you also are familiar with this, is that the board prior to this current interim board had been retired in September 2019, and there really had been a bit of a collapse of governance. In March 2020, the previous CEO was appointed in terms of Section 49(2)B of the PFMA, and served both as the CEO and as the accounting authority. It's not the subject of this meeting, but you're also aware that he also served as the CEO and representative of the shareholder in the PSJV board. The minimum requirements for the board composition, therefore, didn't apply in terms of the Companies Act. And one of the issues that has been raised by the auditors is the material non-compliance of there having been no audit committee. So the audit that the Deputy Minister was referring to is the audit for 2022, which really predates the tenure of the current board and has been extremely valuable to us because it helps us, given the severe capacity constraints we have, to address issues that need attention. So when we were appointed, you know that the external audit for 2020-2021 had not been completed. There had been non-compliance with statutory reporting requirements for the entire period of 2021-2022. And there had been absolutely no work done to prepare the 2021-2022 integrated report and financial statements, which were ultimately approved by the current interim board, but approved because we had to make progress. And as I indicated, it has been extremely useful to get the AG's input for the 2022 external audit. In addition to that, the corporate plan, which should at least have been there in draft report by November of the prior year, plus the budget and shareholder agreement had not been initiated at all. Our AGM for 2021 was held in May of 2022. And at that AGM, it was resolved that we would opt in for the 2022-23 audit to be conducted by the AG, and that we would extend the contract of the external auditor for 21-22. And the reason for that was that we were late to request the AG to opt in for 2021-2022. That request to opt in must normally be made in October of the prior year before the end of the financial year. So our intention was to proceed with the external auditor, and we were then faced with a report that there had been an IRBA investigation involving the external auditor. The partner responsible for the audit has since left the audit company, and hence at a very late stage, we asked the AGSA if we could opt in and if they could conduct the 2021-2022 audit. So we really regret the lateness, but in many ways it's a blessing in disguise, because it has helped us considerably to deal with issues that would probably not have been addressed by the contracted out external auditor had they proceeded. Secondly, we, as you're aware, there's an SIU investigation, and we are eagerly awaiting the results of that investigation, because it will also assist us in identifying the root causes of some of the obstacles we still face. But to indicate that in the interactions with the AG, one of the areas of serious concern is that they have pointed out that the internal capacity for the mining operations and the business of Alexkor was completely decimated, and that there remains a desperate need for both temporary internal capacity to address backlogs and serious concerns about irregularities and internal controls, as well as new permanent capacity. And that's where we have been focusing to rebuild. And with that, I'll hand over to the interim CEO, Professor Fowler. Thank you. Apologies, I didn't turn on my video to show that I am here. I was saving bandwidth. Professor Fowler?
Chairperson, my apologies. I don't know whether it's mine or what. I can't hear.
Chair, it's mine as well, so perhaps Professor Fowler can turn off his video. It might help.
Okay, thank you. Is that better?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you now better.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to give you a glimpse of the 2022-23 finances, I'll just touch on it, but we'll go a bit more in detail later. The following are preliminary results. The group revenue for Alexkor is up by 116% to 492 million. And in 2022, it was 228 million. And this was assisted by the weak dollar-rand exchange rate. The diamonds are sold in dollars, and it has an impact on the exchange rate has an impact on the rand revenue, and the increased carat production, increased carat prices, as well as increased production. But to note that this year the carat prices, or diamond prices, have gone down significantly. It's only the small carats, small diamonds, the -7s, that are not had gone up slightly, and now it's gone back down, that are not down as significantly as the rest of the sizes. The profit for the year was 70 million. In 2022, it was 43 million, and that's up 63%. And the pooling and sharing joint venture has seen significant improved diamond sales, which contributed to the positive financial position. And the audit for the 2022-23 year has commenced. And as Deputy Minister Papela said, it is likely to be finished by the end of October. The production exceeded the target of 34,000, and this year it is 36,700 carats, which is up from the previous year. And we had set a target of 34,000. The previous year, in the 2022, was 20,480 carats. Just moving on to the borrowings. The company does not have any borrowings, and no dividends were declared. Now to go to the turnaround strategy. The strategy, as outlined originally, was to employ larger contractors to explore the mining and land and marine operations extensively, concessions extensively, and reprocessing the tailing dams. The current operations, so next slide, are conducted by small contractors who mine on behalf of the PSJV. The several mining contracts are coming to an end this year, and we've had 90 submissions to the expression of interest, which we had sent out in 27th of November 2023. We've since had 54 requests who qualified after the expression of interest, which was sent to the qualifying principal contractors. And we'll be expected that they submit proposals for one or more mining areas, provided the mining areas are contiguous in both land and marine mining. The last phase of the tender is to be issued shortly. The proposed tender will include opportunity for community mining units made up of contractors from the Richtersveld. So we're proposing that there would be 15 community mining units over the period. And we're working very closely with the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency. At the moment, the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency is meeting with the CPA and to discuss access to the land, etc., and how the community would benefit. But we also had a meeting this morning with the CPA, with the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency, as well as the IDC and CEDA, the Small Economic Development Agency. It was a very positive meeting, in that we were able to have some discussions about the support for the community miners. And we will be continuing those discussions in the next few days. There is, as indicated, there's an urgency in addressing the capacity, the Richtersveld community, because the Boegoe Bay Harbor and Green Hydrogen project, project by Sasol, is in the final stages. What we did discuss is that there would be support from the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency, in that the community mining units would be able to also provide construction support to this construction of the harbor and the construction of the green hydrogen project. So there is interest in ensuring that there's a seamless movement from the mining into the construction period, which will have implications for the Richtersveld community. There are significant economic opportunities, but there are also implications for housing and infrastructure availability, as well as stability in the community, which are all being addressed by both the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency, the Northern Cape government, and Transnet and ourselves to try to ensure that we improve the infrastructure to accommodate the new residents. It is expected that ultimately the population of the Richtersveld area will double, but will likely be concentrated close to the Boegoe Bay Harbor. The construction period is likely to have fewer people and are likely to be migrant workers, who would locate in the area, which could have significant short-term social impact. And as I indicated, the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency and Transnet, as well as Sasol, are engaging with the CPA, Community Property Association, about the arrangements for the construction. If we could move on to the next slide. The reprocessing of the tailings dump, we have made progress in undertaking rehabilitation of the historic mining areas to address the long-term commitment. The historic and current rehabilitation already overlap, in that the PSJV is already doing some of the historic rehabilitation through what we call concurrent mining activity. So as we mine, we ensure that the tailings are not increased, the dumps are not increased, that they rehabilitate immediately. And that's the process that we've undertaken. The diamondiferous waste referred to above in the old tailing dumps can be remined due to improved technology. And at the moment, we're looking at both locally produced equipment that is yielding some positive results, as well as the commercially produced equipment, which we will enlist which was already being utilized by many of the contractors, so that we do get improved production from those areas. We've developed a 7-year rehabilitation plan, which will be implemented in the third quarter of the 2023-24 financial year. And just to indicate that there has been some developments that I will ask Mr. Dion Bowers to address. What has happened in the area is that, as you are aware, De Beers and Transnet have sold their concessions. Sorry, Transex has sold their concessions, and that's having some implication for the mining in the area. And in particular, the De Beers sale was to a company called West Coast Resources, which is having significant financial challenges, and I think they've declared bankruptcy. And at the moment, there are significant number of illegal miners, which has an impact on security. It's not on the slide, but I'll ask Mr. Bowers just to add to that point.
Good morning, Chair, honorable members. Just to expand on the point that Mr. Fowler has raised, since 2020-21, Alexkor RMC PSJB has found that there was an increase in illegal mining activities on our concession to the point where at sometimes more than 500 to 2,000 illegal miners will storm the mine, and they would overpower security, and then they would steal gravel.
Chair,
Lost voice.
yeah, I was thinking maybe something is wrong with the network.
I think let's check if any of them can be in a position to continue. Honorable Deputy Minister, can you check for us?
Okay.
I think they were kicked out. I think Trish Hanekom can really continue in the meantime.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. And they'll indicate as soon as they rejoin. I did indicate when I was talking about where we had come from, that the fact that we now have the designated representatives of the RMC serving in the PSJB board is an extremely significant development. When we were appointed, there were 3 court-appointed directors in terms of Rule Nisi, and they served from 2016 and were replaced in 2019. We have not to this date managed to establish how they were selected and appointed. And the decision of the board was that if we are going to at any point restore trust and ensure that there is a working relationship with the community whose land the mining is taking place on, and they are able to take decisions for themselves, we would be failing to make the necessary progress. So we ultimately, following the history where the CPA was placed under administration because it had collapsed, the CPA was properly reconstituted in February of 2023, and we had anticipated and been advised that that date would that the re-establishment would happen much earlier, and we were in court repeatedly in 2022 and have been in court this year with regard to the replacement of the court-appointed non-executive directors representing the RMC. And on the 2nd of June 2023, the court ruled that the designated RMC representatives who are from the CPA would represent the RMC in the PSJB. We have had 2 board meetings and an induction session, and rationalization of the institutional arrangements in this reconstituted board is being discussed with our colleagues from the CPA. But I think from the side of Alexkor, this is an extremely important milestone because we were reticent about certain areas of progress where, apart from what must be decided by the joint board, it would have been inappropriate to progress certain decisions without the input of the CPA. And just to indicate that when we held the induction session, we were very appreciative of the fact that the Deputy Minister joined us, and there is obviously an ongoing discussion about how we ensure that we rationalize the arrangements that are really not quite fit for purpose, given that they that we're not 2023, as I was saying. I hope that Lebo Laka is on the platform. I'm just checking. Lebo?
But also to indicate that the Trevor Fowler is back also.
Oh, okay. So, Trevor, can I hand back to you then? I'm assuming that the highlights of where we are financially, you'll introduce it, and the acting CFO will speak to the detail. Trevor?
Thank you, Chair. My apologies. Lebo did indicate that she was joining the platform. We'll just check to make sure that she's there. The Alexkor results indicate a performance that's not quite what we wanted. We want to have much better results. But what will happen? There were management fees that were collected from the PSJV, which has been stopped because that's not inconsistent with the appropriate way of addressing the finances. Diamond sales in future will be payable by the PSJV to Alexkor. So that has been addressed because that was an anomaly that had happened. The pooling and sharing joint venture results for the half year are approximately on budget. Production for the first half of the year, this is for 2023, is 500 carats above production, and it is anticipated that the budget for this year will be obtained. Let me allow Lebo to talk to the next slides, which I think is the financial information. Lebo, if you could address it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members. I'll take you through the finances relating to Alexkor and the PSJV. And what we've indicated really is Alexkor on a standalone view and with the PSJV as well, just based on the Q1 where we are at the moment. For Alexkor, we earning rental income, which is in the tune of about 2.5 million for the quarter. That's what we've reported. And operating expenditure is sitting at 10 million compared to the rental income. And just to note that some of the expenses that are coming through here have been expenses that were not being recognized in the past. And because of that, and because we're doing extensive work to try and sort out the finances for Alexkor. Part of those expenses are coming through now in these reports. And after taking into account the 51% interest in the PSJV, Alexkor poses 6 million, it is a 17 million profit just on the Alexkor point of view. On the PSJV front, if we can move to the next slide, please. The revenue that the PSJV has earned for Q1 relating to the 2024 financial year is 373 million. And you'll note that this is almost the same as we've earned in the past for half-year records. But this is mainly due to one specific stone that came through on the sale in Q1 that fetched about 150 million. So that helped us to just show that increase in revenue, and it's considerable based on what we're reporting at the moment. And the profit for PSJV is 38 million for the quarter. And a part of this, just on the cost front, as you'll note that we pay contractors a portion for what they mine on our behalf. And that expense is it's mostly about 70% of the revenue that we present quarter on quarter. And we've seen considerable increase in the cash that we're holding at the moment. Although that cash, we cannot spend it all on operations, we still have a capital budget that we still need to fund from the cash that we've realized. And as the chairperson has indicated, that we've made considerable strides to turn around the entity to make sure that we show considerable increases in revenues, and cost containment is still part of what we continue doing, so that we just make sure that we are able to manage our costs and to be able to continue in operation in the foreseeable future. And if I may hold the chairperson and Mr. Fowler and hand over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Just to indicate the future outlook, despite the improved performance of the PSJV, there's a significant backlog to be addressed. There are still inadequate funds to address all of the required projects, which require urgent attention. We will, at the end of this year, will have made significant progress in addressing the capital projects. Progress has been made in addressing the handover of the town of Alexander Bay to the Rustenburg municipality. In the first phase, we are doing electricity handover, and that all that's required at the moment is that we need to engage with the community. That will be called by the Rustenburg municipality to engage with the community about the handover, because there may be a slight difference in charges that the municipality would charge in comparison to what Alexkor has charged, because they have services that are provided to a much larger area. The services that are provided by the Rustenburg community address the Rustenburg municipality addresses all of the Rustenburg community. And so they would be slightly different charges. The water and other services are in the process of upgrading. We have returned the waste collection to what it was before, earlier, and Alexkor and the PSJV provide water to Port Nolloth and to the Alexander Bay, and we will be upgrading those water services. The sustainability of the going concern status requires constant attention, and we are focused on that with daily cash reports that ensures that we remain cash positive. The operating model is being reviewed by DPE and is near completion. And an overall plan, which includes the investment in community projects to broaden the income streams, is in the process of discussion with the boards. Thank you. If we could move on to the next slide, I think that's it. Though just to before we close, just to indicate that what Mr. Bowers was indicating, that there had been illegal miners who were operating on the mine in 2021. Those have all been addressed. We've addressed that situation. So, but we have constantly be constantly vigilant about the illegal miners in the area, because we've increased our production. So we do have events where they will send 60 to 100 people into an area to steal the gravel to process, so that they can process it for mining. But Mr. Bowers was updating on the area around Plains here. I just asked him to conclude that, so that you can have an idea of what the risks are for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Let's continue with my update. Since extra security and security that can deal with crowd violence, since then some of the mines were not abandoned, but the shareholders of the mine stopped mining. West Coast Resources and the Beer stopped mining a long time ago. The illegal miners moved over to these areas on the Buffers River along the West Coast concession, and they've set up a informal settlement at a mine called Bontekoe, where there has been previously a mine disaster where 14 miners have died due to a mine collapsing. And since then, they have also moved into the Kleinseer area that belong to De Beers. As the situation stands at the moment, they have now increased to, they reckon, about 2,000 to 3,000 people that's in and around the area. They have now, since yesterday, started special operations to clear out the illegal miners, because it's now obviously become a social problem as well, with illegal miners being trapped underground on more regular basis, crime that's escalating and so on. So since yesterday, they've started removing these illegal miners from the areas by special task forces, helicopters and yalas and all sorts of specialized units from the police. They've arrested a few miners, and the informal information we're getting is now they've arrested about 1,000 people. They've confiscated vehicles, confiscated vehicles, and they've now started to demolish the illegal structures that was built. At this stage, we still keeping our ear on the ground, but our biggest risk is that these illegal miners will now spill over back to our concession. We've had meetings with our security staff, and we also vigilant on our side now to try and mitigate any spillover that's going to come from that operations. So it's quite a risk to the mining operations, as Mr. Fowler explained. It's a risk to the employees. It's a risk to our gravel, and the biggest risk obviously is to life, because these illegal miners are quite violent, and some of them carry guns, and it's a big risk to the communities as well, because not the previous evening they had a murder in Kleinse, where somebody was tortured and murdered. And like I said, we are not used to that type of things happening in our communities. So yes, as things stand now, we're keeping our ear on the ground and to see what subs will what the outcome of this whole operation will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I think that concludes the presentation with just the update around the recent risks that have started to occur. Thank you very much.
Okay, can I just indicate that we
okay.
we've also been joined by another board member, Danelle Petter, who is both on the Alexkor board and the PSJV board. As I indicated at the beginning, I think overall it's a good story to tell, and it's thanks to really tireless effort from Professor Fowler and his team, as well as very committed board members. But we do acknowledge, obviously, that there remain big challenges that we need to surmount. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nelcom and the team for the presentation. I think at some point this committee, I don't know, because we are at the tail end of our 5-year term, but I think at some point, even if we're not here, there is a need of a collective handling of this issue of illegal mining. I know mining is only affecting us due to Alexkor, but I think this portfolio committee together with the minerals need to have a strategy and assist in the dealing of this problem. It's becoming a serious problem in South Africa. I'm saying that because my family has been affected also by this. I've got a brother with only one eye who was left dead by these guys. They are vicious. I think we need to do something. But anyway, we thank you for your presentation, and we'll give members an opportunity to engage the presentation. We'll start with the Honorable Gumede, followed by Honorable Kachalia. Yes, accordingly, honorable members.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to all members on the platform. Good morning, DM, the board, the colleagues as well. Chair, you know, when reading the report and you hear the presentation, it does tell you that this is a kind of an interim report. Thanks to DM to have, in fact, closed the gaps that could have triggered most questions. I think his preliminary input in fact, did help in the sense that many of the gaps were then closed. Thanks again that there is a report that's forthcoming, which in fact will unpack some of the issues that in fact are not covered. Because I know, there are some of the issues that we may consider are peripheral in the sense. In fact, one was going to be interested to find out that after this report, what next? Then it's clear, and we are hoping that when the second report after this one comes, as the DM has explained, it may begin to unpack some of those issues that in fact may be outstanding. Well, the report does state that when the CEO, the former CEO, resigned, there were quite a lot of outstanding items. I'm hoping that those outstanding items will in fact be elucidated from the report that will be coming, the issues of external audit, the compliance issues, the annual financial statements, and which in fact the DM has alluded to it, that it's coming very soon. I'm happy as well that the issue of the AGM is on. I was worried that it's the 29th is in fact around the corner and nothing seemed to be mentioned in terms of the AGM. Chair, there is something that keeps on, I don't know, it keeps on missing me. Whether the board that Trish is leading, is it an interim or is it a full-time board? Is it compliant in the sense, and are all critical posts or vacancies filled? Because the look from this situation, it tells us that the sole CEO last time, who was the overseer of everything, that's what led to the weak Alexkor, because he was the decider and all those things up until his resignation somewhere in I think it's early. Is it early 2023 or late 2022? In fact, having not accomplished many of the issues that ought to have been conducted at the time. Hence, then we have quite a lot of outstanding. I'll be happy then if Trish could address us on the status of the current board. Chair, it gives a little bit of a hope in terms of the snapshots that they've given us of the 22-23, that the whole scene seemed to have improved in terms of the revenue, but in many instances, the performance of the PSJV is always better than the situation in Alexkor. But I'm hoping that in fact things will get better and be improved in a sense, especially, Chair, if we talk about the situation where the entity has no borrowings. That's excellent, but not quite too sure when there are no dividends that are declared. One was hoping that with more dividends that are declared, it means that there was a little bit more of the profit in fact. Chair, I'm happy as well that the report does separate the competition between the main contractors as well as the RMSUs, because if they are looking for a 15 RMSUs and they are to compete with the big contractors, that was going to be a big concern. Now the RSUs, the RMUs will be competing among themselves, and the 15 will in fact be chosen among themselves. Chair, the retaining dumps. Do we have enough budget to undertake that work? And from the assessment of the situation, what value is Alexkor hoping to achieve when the retailing dumps are being processed? Yes, I'm not sure how many reports are outstanding that we are expecting from Alexkor. Yes, there are reports that are outstanding. I'm hoping that those reports will be forthcoming, in the words of the DM. There is a mention of the projects that Alexkor wish to initiate, the capital projects, at the same time inadequate funding. Then where do they think they will get the funds that will help them facilitate or initiate such projects? Chair, other than that, as an interim report, it does give a little bit of hope, and one hopes that the forthcoming report, as the DM promised, will in fact unpack more other issues at the time. Otherwise, I'm happy with the report as outlined, hoping that things will in fact improve permanently, and that from you, Chair, you will then help us. We'll want to see the second phase and see how Alexkor is improving. Other than that, Chair, thank you very much for the report. I think it is appreciated and it's well done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Gumede. Honorable Katalia.
Thank you, Chair. I have 8 specific questions which I'd like answers to. They relate to aspects of the board, and the others relate to the impact in general on the lives and the people who live in the Richtersveld. Number 1, did the minister take the board appointments to cabinet? To the point alluded to by the Honorable Gumede, the minister calls it an interim board, but it has been in place for over 1 year. Is this legal? I believe 3 members have resigned. Is this true? At least the disgraced Minister Lynn Brown took her Gupta-approved boards to cabinet. Number two, in view of the unaudited increased financial performance figures that we have been presented with today, has the 190 million rand earmarked for reparations to be paid over 3 years to the Richtersveld Investment Holding Company been paid? Number three, has the 50 million rand development grant for agriculture and marine culture being paid to the Richtersveld Investment Holding Company? Number four, has the 45 million rand being paid to the Richtersveld Property Holding Company in respect of compensation for Alexkor's occupation of transferred residential properties over the last 10 years, the past 10 years? Number five, when can we expect the township at Alexander Bay to be handed over to the Richtersveld municipality? Number six, in respect of environmental rehabilitation of historically mined areas, what has been done? For example, Emerald Panther Western Cape Resources purchased with a 190 million rand government loan some Namakoland mines. This company is now bankrupt and no environmental rehabilitation was done. Who was involved at company level, and what about others? Number seven, can you confirm that a major tender is in the process of being awarded to the former CEO, Lemogang Pitswe's sister? Number eight, and finally, when can we expect the annual financial statements, which should address these questions as they affect its financials and impact on numbers and the board issues, especially now that government is supposedly pursuing alternative routes to ensure that audited annual financial statements are presented timeously? All this is happening while the community waits, as it has for decades, for a meaningful impact on their lives as envisioned by the deed of sale. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Katalia. It's now Honorable Mhlongo, followed by Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, we must thank the board for their presentation, as short as it is. Let's just get straight to the questions, Chair. Perhaps before we get to the questions, let's just highlight that the outstanding 2021-2022 audited financial statements, which have not been done or finalized by the previous board, we're going to have a proper bite on it when it's finalized and is presented to us. But let's just highlight to the Deputy Minister and perhaps to the Minister, even in his absentia, that we will not spare to hold them accountable for all the mess that had happened, because they've been here, the Minister has been here in this department since 2018, when all this mess was happening, and he must be able to account on what he did on his side to ensure that all these things were not happening, of which happened under his watch. This board was under his watch since 2018 as a Minister of Public Enterprises. Now, my first question is, how is the board going to address the issue of the inadequate funds, which are meant to address some capital projects? Because I see they've highlighted the problem, but they have not explained how they are going to address this challenge. The second issue, the issue of the illegal miners that are operating in the area. We hear that some have been arrested. There's some operation that seems to be happening to get rid of them. But history is a good teacher. We see from other mining areas like your Johannesburg, we've seen they've been trying to chase out illegal miners, trying to do operations. They keep coming back and forth. In reality, what is the plan of the board to ensure that these miners who are chased from the mines that have been closed in the other areas are not coming to them to cause problems in their operations, to endanger the lives of the residents and also the lives of the miners who are mining in the area? Because we know for a fact that illegal miners, when they are there in an area, takes a lot of work to get them to move. It means there must be reinforcement of security of the mines. But the other issue, perhaps I'm raising this issue with you, but it's not in your competence, because the other mines that have been closed by DPS were supposed to have been rehabilitated so that issues of illegal mining do not happen. But it means it did not happen. The rehabilitation of the closed mines did not happen. Hence, the illegal miners are in the area trying to mine illegally. So, second question, the issue of high staff turnover, especially in the finance division, has it been resolved? And what's the turnaround strategy to resolve it? Because we can't operate in this manner where there's a high staff turnover, where a lot of employees resign and they leave a vacancy, and those vacancies are not filled. And lastly, Chair, I'm not sure if it was raised because there was a lot of time I was struggling with network in the presentation, but I did not hear the issue of the audit committee. As the board now, do they have an audit committee as required by Section 94 of the Companies Act? If so, when was it appointed, and how far are they with work of auditing and ensuring that the books of the entity are in order? But if it was covered, can it just please be highlighted again? I might have missed it. Here in the city of Tshwane, there's power outages due to the storms that happened last night. So I'm really struggling with network. I'm hoping if it was addressed, can it just be highlighted so I can hear how it was resolved? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Msongo. Honorable Dlamini.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, colleagues. I don't know. Let's welcome the report because it's here. But there is nothing new, really, in the report. You'll remember, colleagues, when you went to Alexkor, it was explained to us because we asked why the then CEO was both an accounting officer and the CEO. That was as a result of the problems with the previous board. And there was a matter in court around that. Now, we seem to be blaming everything on the previous CEO, but when we were there, the story was different. Two, Honorable Kachalia has covered the 45 million rand that was held on behalf of the community because the CPA wasn't properly constituted. It's good news that it's now constituted, but can we hear about that 45 million that was supposed to be transferred to the community? and he has further covered me on the issue of transferring that town to the municipality. When is that happening? I'm aware the municipality is not keen to take over because apparently they can't afford it, but it's something that has to happen. And how does the Bohubai project help alleviate the financial challenges faced by that municipality outside of the mine? Because remember, the mine is carrying the bill for now, but it really should be the municipality that's dealing with that. Chair, you will remember when we went to Alexander Bay that Alexkor has been turning things around. In the previous years, when the then CEO was there, they were dealing with reducing their debt. And it looks as if the new board has carried on from there. We are seeing steady progress. Now I have a bit of a concern, which maybe it can be clarified. Remember when we went to Alexkor, the focus of the operations at the time was on marine mining. Have they moved to land mining? And what sort of contribution has that move had on the balance book, if any? That's the other part. And the new contracts that they want to have bigger mining companies brought on board. How is that going to affect the smaller, small-scale miners that are already in the space? Because it would be unfair to remove them in favor of the bigger companies. Maybe my final question, Chair. With the construction of Bohubai, it will make financial sense for mining companies to move their commodities, more especially in the iron ore and manganese space, to move their shipping operations to that harbor. It's closer, and probably it's going to be cheaper to export from there. What effect is that going to have on Saldanha Bay? Maybe that's more for the ministry than the board, because the presentation says there'll be economic opportunities for the community with the construction of that port. How many are permanent? How many are sort of temporary? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Dlamini. Honorable Isaac.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues on the meeting this morning. Yeah, lots has been said. Chairperson, I'm going to be brief and just direct to the point. What I'd like to inquire is that, if my memory serves me correct, there was a court order that needed to be complied with. I think the deadline date was the 23rd of August, 2023, which was now the date. Was that court order complied with? It had to do with the Richtersveld community. The second question, Chairperson, I would like to address is issue inadequate funds that was raised. I would also like to just find out that should there not be audited financial statements at least every quarter. Then, Chairperson, there was the issue which was discussed previously, and I'd like to bring it to the fore again. That was regarding the asbestos removal contract in Alexandra Bay. Perhaps just an update on that. The issue regarding the cofferdams, which obviously has been creating a huge environmental regulations that are being flouted. what is the status regarding this issue of cofferdams? And then, of course, Chairperson, there is the issue that was raised earlier regarding the fact that the mining company still needs to be regularized. Perhaps we could find out what is the timeline around that too, because as all of us on this committee know, things at Alexkor, somehow or the other, just seem to drag on and on. And then finally, in the interest of not being repetitive, I think my colleague has covered the issues of the monies and the transfers. So, yeah, Chairperson, there remain, in my opinion, numerous challenges regarding sustainability at Alexkor. So I'm not too sure if it's a good story to tell with due respect, Ms. Hanekom. I'm not too convinced that it's a good story to tell. Because there, the issues of the finalization of the deed of settlement still remain critical. And then, of course, the various investigations into the maladministration allegations that were presented in previous meetings of this committee. Perhaps if we could just get some sort of an update on that. Chairperson, I thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Isaac. Now we go to Honorable Siweya.
Morning, Chair, and good morning to colleagues and the delegation. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Siweya. The next person will be, I hope, I'll check if Honorable Piri is in a position to speak.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, it's your turn.
Morning to yourself, Chair, colleagues, delegation led by the DM, as well as the chairperson or the interim board chair, Ms. Hanekom. Chair, I want to concur with colleagues who have accepted the report that is short, simple, and straightforward. But, Chair, one might ask herself whether what has been tabled before us, will it be sustainable enough, or it's a temporal measure to deal with issues that are happening at Alexkor and its own entities? Chair, it still disturbs me. When we went to Alexkor, I have raised a number of issues in terms of security. And security issues are very broad. One, let me start on the basis of getting into Alexkor diamond sorting on its own. I even gave examples because I'm from a mining community, Chair, and I've been to Venetia mine, which is where I'm from, and that is owned by De Beers. Chair, the accessing of this diamond sourcing, for me, while I compare it with other mines that I visited, we have a serious challenge. Then it tells me the reasons why we are not doing much, or we are not getting the profit that we are anticipating. In a layman's language, everybody will tell you, if you are talking about diamonds, it means there's no way you can make profit. There's no way that an entity cannot sustain itself. Therefore, it brings back to the point of security system that I've seen. I want to check with the interim board. Do you have any measure systems that are in place, or have you ever visited other mining companies where they are mining, how they're dealing with their security? To even beside entering the diamond sorting system, where I used my own clothes, I did not even was not given a PPE so that if I stepped on top of a diamond, I must not go out with it. It must remain because I've left your boots and other stuffs. But it's on that basis only. I want us to be given a proper plan of how are you going to deal with it, because it will never have a good result, because you are always in the back of the mind that there's something happening, be it your employees internally, outside, or whatever. The system on its own, it's not tight. Two, when we went to where they're diving, it's like a desert, Chair. Yes, you are saying there are illegal miners. They've tried to explain the processes and your red ends that are busy making them to vacate where they are not supposed to be seated. But do have something in writing that they can present to say, indeed, as we did this, and we are chasing them away as illegal miners. It will never happen because our systems are very tight. We'll never experience this part. Chair, Richtersveld is situated like Musina, where I come from. It's a border town. Be it, I can't remember, I don't know whether I'll be specific, whether it's Namibia or something else, the other country, which you always experience illegal fluctuation of illegal migrants. And while we were there were some issues that will say, those who are not citizens of the country or the community of Richtersveld, they rather not be appointed, but they appoint foreigners and those who are illegal. And that thing on its own, Chair, creates, unstable situation of residents, because they feel threatened that you are employing foreigners. But all in all, these things that I'm raising, it falls under security, Chair. And that the security of the environment on its own, I feel like it's compromised. But my question then, therefore, will be, do we have anything that is substantial, concrete, that says, be relaxed, we have all systems in place, everything will be fine? It was on the side of security. Chair, the site, they've given us a very good picture that says they're making profit. And it might be not much, but currently they are making profit. What are the good lessons that they can share with us, and the bad lessons that they've learned from the previous culture or wrongdoings that they've experienced as an entity, to say this went wrong because there was 1, 2, 3. Therefore, we realize in terms of doing this in this manner, we have started to do this in this fashion, then this is a good lesson that we can say we have learned from it and we're picking it up. All along, we've been experiencing not getting profit. Even the dividends were not in that fashion that we could say it's dividends that can be shared. But Chair, I want us to be taken into confidence in terms of finances. How are they handling them? Honorable Dlamini has raised litigations that were there, even previously when the former CEO, who was double dipping, raised them. I thought we're gonna be upraised and be updated. How far is it finalized on that basis, or you are still undergoing the processes of the legal route? So I think there are few things that are still hanging, as much as the report is very short, straightforward, but we feel it must also give us what happened previously, how did they resolve that, and taking it forth. Chair, lastly, as I want to end, when we went for an oversight, we went to, whether I'll call it a compound or a small Anyana village, where we got dilapidated houses that were not in a good state. Some, they were staying there, Some they say they are no longer staying, and it has an element of harboring criminals. It has an element of harboring, legal minors as well. But in their presentation, they've raised something like, now why there's something that is going on. We are finalizing the process of, I think it's on the slide where they say employ larger contractors to minors, where they are saying there's an opportunity of housing and infrastructure availability as well to stabilize the community. Are they referring to those houses? Maybe to say they are going to refurbish the houses, rebuild them to be in a good state, or what is happening in those houses that we've seen? I can't give a specific name because, we deal with lots of names, but I believe, Chair, you know which houses am I referring to, and even themselves, I believe they know which houses am I referring to. So I want to understand: is it this you are rebuilding those houses? Are you trying to reconnect electricity to those dilapidated houses that were supposed to be handed over to community? Now you are assisting them as an entity. What are you really talking about? Or are you trying to rebuild new houses? You have identified, the municipality gave you a new land where you're going to rebuild afresh. If you are rebuilding afresh, what will happen to those houses? So I wanted to get that understanding. But Chair, while we are saying the report looks very rosy and good, we don't want a temporal solution where maybe in the next administration, they will refer again to say, no, there was an interim board led by Mrs. Hanekom. It did 1, 2, 3. The next board that it will be appointed, because this is an interim, it will always refer back to the matters. But we want you, the current acting board, to give us permanent solutions and put it in writing to enforce, or even the new board that is coming must move towards your good initiative to sustain and maintain the entity. So we really feel like if it will always be a ball that is thrown to the outgone and a ball that will be thrown to the new ones. And to be honest, Chair, I'm tired of hearing the state capture. All of us South Africans knows there are state captures. Let's look forward and find solution. Let's look forward. We only refer to a state capture where we want to say, this is a mark that we did. It happened before. Then now this is a good thing that we are doing. Chair, allow me to stop there. Thanks.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Honorable Piri. Thank you so much. Can we go to Honorable Malinga?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings to yourself, members of the Portfolio Committee, the DPE colleagues led by the DM and the committee staff. Chair, let me also welcome the short presentation. Apologies for joining the meeting late. I was in my Portfolio Committee Chairperson. I want to start with the issues of the tender that the Honorable Kachalia was throwing allegations at. Chairperson, my understanding of a tender is that a tender gets to be advertised. Whoever qualifies will a tender for that process, Chairperson. Also want to concur with Honorable Dlamini as to, it seems as if we are throwing everything now to the former CEO. Chairperson, in March 2020, according to this report, the former CEO was also appointed as the accounting officer. So my question will go directly to DPE Chair. Who appointed the former CEO to be the accounting officer, and what were the conditions of that one, Chair? Chairperson, I am confused as to why did Alexkor not have an audit committee? and whose responsibility was to establish the audit committee. Chair, when we went to oversight in Boho Bay, I think it's Boho Bay in Alexkor, the issues that were raised by the community, there was the issue of housing, issue of youth unemployment. I don't see in this report, Chair, the issue of how far has the company gone in terms of youth unemployment, because we got here to hear there that young people there have skills, but they are overlooked. Also, Chairperson, when we were doing the rounds there, we found a small scale, I think it's marine contractors who were not yet formalized. How far are they with formalizing that issue of the small scale farmers? Because contractors, I mean, because now I see on the report that they are talking about large contractors. Chairperson, the issue of the finalization of the audit of 2021. Why was it left to date in 2023, whereas the interim CEO and the board were appointed in 2022, Chair? Chairperson, lastly, on the issue of the CPAs was put under administration. I think DPE and DADLA, they should be, or they are in conversation of when to re-establish the CPA Chairperson. When and or how soon can this issue be resolved, Chair? But throwing allegations, Chairperson, whereas somebody that you throw allegations against has no opportunity to reply or is not in a meeting, I don't think it's how it should this work be done, Chairperson. Let me stop there for now, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Malinga. I think we've got last person now, which is Honorable Mkwanazi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Siyabingelela kuwena, my colleagues, honorable members, team led by the Honorable Deputy Minister. Thanks, Chair. But Chairperson, on the report statement by the Deputy Minister and the Chair and the interim board Chairperson, on the positive report and the work done by the interim board and the report. Yes, the report is short, straightforward, but I think with the considerable work that needs to be done, I think maybe next time, Chair, which must be in the near future, I think the report needs to be detailed on the previous conditions and the progress reports on the plan, on the current plan. Secondly, Chair, the board chair, the interim board chairperson talk about the SIU reports. I think part of that, Honorable Pire has covered it to say we've had enough of a state capture. We know about it, but I think we need to fast track the work that is being done around that. Maybe if she can talk over the timelines and what work are they doing around that SIU report that they are waiting for it. Chairperson, honorable members has covered the large part of what I wanted to look into to say, but I want to check from the CEO that who's coordinating the meeting or the program or that needs to be done by the Northern Cape Development Agency, the Northern Cape government, and Transnet and Alexkor, because the last time we were there, Chair, on the oversight, there was a delay and not a clear coordination plan between the stakeholders. So if they can clarify that, and to talk to the issue of fast tracking the projects, as Honorable Malina was alluding to those projects, on fast tracking the projects, because without the timelines, Chair, and without the clear coordination, I think we'll be doing one and the same thing, as Honorable Dlamini was saying, to say, I think it's one and the same report that we are getting. And lastly, Chair, I want to take from your comments on the issue of this zamazamas, or this illegal mining, to say, can't we coordinate a meeting or an oversight between ourselves and DMRE, so that maybe we go to an oversight together or a meeting together? I wanted to propose a program around that with DMRE. For now, Chairperson, thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Mkhwanazi. I'm also on my side covered by all honorable members. I think my question, every time one speaker, I tick, meaning that that particular question has been covered. But without pouring water on that contribution by honorable members, I do want to appreciate the fact that if one follows from 2019 on the presentations that we have been getting to this date from Alexkor, at least there is a light somewhere towards the end of the tunnel that we see. There is a lot of improvement that should be appreciated by this committee, despite all the questions we have raised. In Afrikaans, they said, Biji, Biji, Magbaya. Each and every step, small as it is, but at the end of the day, it makes a bigger sort of work covered. I know for a fact that these questions that are being raised by honorable members are vital and very important, especially we have been always experiencing this problem of the amount that has not yet been paid to the community, that has been not really being finalized. I think that issue needs to be looked at. But generally, in terms of the capacity and the progress of the entity, it's not the same as 2019. There is an improvement, and we would love to see more improvement also. Because we don't want to lose this entity. We don't want this entity to be privatized either. We would love to see it being contributing to the social welfare of all of us, including particularly the community where the mining is. With those words, we do appreciate the progress, but let's take this opportunity to give back to the board and the executive. I don't know whether the Deputy Minister would love to start first or and give therefore to the board and executive after that. Honorable Deputy Minister.
No, I'll come immediately after the board and the executive have answered, and then there are obviously a few of those questions that comes to us as a shareholder, so we'll then respond after. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the board.
Chair, I think there were some very specific operational issues that should be dealt with first, and then there's a whole range of issues that are related to governance and possibly areas that might not be covered by Professor Fowler. So please, can you let Professor Fowler go first?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Let me start with Honorable Gumede, who raised questions about the board, which will be covered by the chair and the deputy minister. But in relation to critical posts, we have advertised for the CEO and the CFO, and the finance area, which was mentioned. We have developed a finance structure which really tries to accommodate some of the weaknesses that were there previously. And those posts, with the exception of the CFO, has been filled. We are also ensuring that the current team receives training for both at a management level, but also at an operational level. That the training, which will commence with in the next few weeks, will address many of the concerns around the finance area, which we have started to address. We haven't addressed all of it as yet, because we've got to ensure that the capacity gets addressed. The one area that we have looked at around the questions that Honorable Kachalia asked, which is the question around the 45 million. The 45 million certainly is still available, and it will be handed over as required when the town of Alexander Bay is handed over to the Richtersveld mining company, Richtersveld municipality. The town handover, as I mentioned in my presentation, is being done in phases. The electricity has been, we've handed over, we've met with NERSA, we've met with the various other departments that are required around electricity handover. And we are also coordinating specifically with the Premier's Office of the Northern Cape. The DG calls regular steering committees that addresses this question of the town handover. The community meeting, which needs to be called by the municipality to ensure that that aspect is completed, will be done. We will be engaging again with the municipality on that matter. We are constantly in communication with them, because we are currently the service provider for water in Alexander Bay and in Port Nolloth. We are the service providers, and we are currently in the process of working with the Northern Cape government in ensuring that the pipeline, which is old, is replaced. There are sections of the pipeline that we, as the Alexkor, are going to be replacing, which will allow us to increase the water supply to the area, which does pose a challenge in relation to the over 90 kilometers of pipeline that needs to be upgraded. That there's a certain portion that we are undertaking to ensure that that's done. The annual financials, as mentioned by the Deputy Minister, will be addressed at the AGM. The Honourable Mhlongo also asked about the annual financial statements, which will be presented after the AGM. And the delay, as indicated by the chair, was that there was an existing auditor in place, which it turned out was under investigation by IRBA. And once we received the report from the Auditor General about the appointment, we then requested that the Auditor General opt in to ensure that they do the audit, so that we don't have the challenges of the previous situation where with no I think no fault of the previous board, sorry, the previous CEO and the current and the board, that the auditor that they had in place was had been under investigation. They would not have that kind of control over those matters, and that was the situation when we arrived, which resulted in the delay in the audit. And the annual financials for the 2021-22 was really only completed, the audit was only completed a month ago. And the audit for the 23 will be completed in October, as indicated by the Auditor General. The question of illegal miners, the illegal miners that we were referring to is in the areas which are not in the Alexkor areas. It's outside of the Alexkor areas. And we were pointing out that there is a risk in relation to that. But however, we have a security team which has a rapid response unit that is able to respond to any threats that occur on the mine, and we also work in cooperation with the South African Police Service, and there are regular meetings both with the South African Police Service in the Alexander Bay area, but also in the province, and our security manager coordinates directly with them. And in relation to that, we've been able to respond quickly to any events that have occurred in the area. So there are no illegal miners operating on the 90 kilometers along the coast and some 17 kilometers along the Orange River. That certainly that is in the concession of Alexkor and the PSJV and the Richtersveld Mining Company. The question of the high staff turnover, that we've addressed. There were a number of temporary employees which have now been made permanent, and ensured that we now have a staff situation which is at least stable, and we are in the process of doing employment to strengthen the staffing component. I did mention about the employment of the CEO and CFO to address vacancies. The question of the audit committee, there is an audit committee. There's when the board was appointed, the audit committees were established within a couple of months after the appointment, and there's certainly an audit and risk committee. There is a SCHR committee, Human Resource Committee, and Social and Environment Committee that are in place, but I'll leave that for the chair to address. In the question of the Honorable Dlamini feeling that we blame it on the previous CEO, we are not putting any blame. What we're really pointing out is the situation when we arrived. And we've, so the question of the town handover, which Honorable Dlamini, I've already addressed that. He also mentioned the question of reducing the dredge and the focus on marine mining. That marine mining is dependent on the sea, on the marine activity. And though there has been fairly good, what we refer to as good sea days this year, so the marine mining has increased, but land mining has been in the last year, or 9 months of the last year, or the 2022-23 year, land mining has made most of the contribution to the carat production or the diamond production in the area. So just to clarify that we have increased the land mining quite significantly. The key question around the larger mining companies, as a part of the qualification and the tender, it has been made very clear that each one of the larger contractors must support smaller contractors. And we've also made, after looking at the qualifications, we've also made an adjustment to ensure that we have what we refer to as community mining units, which will ensure that those are people who are from the Richtersveld and are residents of the Richtersveld over a long period of time. The coordination around the Bucco Bay Harbor and the Bucco Bay Harbor project, and ourselves with the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency and Transnet, that coordination is being done by the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency in relation to Bucco Bay. We work fairly closely with them, with the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency, and they are also working with Transnet to ensure that those that the work on the harbor is coordinated with the overall master plan that they have, which includes both an industrial area as well as improved housing. So what we mentioned about the impact it would have on housing, it is with the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency and the Northern Cape government that work is being done. On the cofferdams, the cofferdam mining had been suspended in December of 2021, and we have not done any cofferdam mining since then. We still continue to do beach mining, which is really not in the water, but it's really in the really shallow waters, and the environmental impact of that is minimal. And the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment do visit the mine regularly, as well as the Department of Minerals, Resources, and Energy. The question of the RMC that was mentioned, the RMC is the Richtersveld Mining Company, and as indicated by the chair, the Alexkor is a 51% shareholder or interest holder in what is referred to as the pooling and sharing joint venture, which is a joint venture with the Richtersveld Mining Company. The Richtersveld Mining Company has not yet been fully established because there have been some challenges around the registration with the CIPC, the company registration, in getting appropriate documentation from the previous board members, well, not the board members, a single board member who passed away, and they've been trying to get that documentation to ensure that they can reestablish that company. The company is, in fact, a company that is owned and would be operated by the Cedar Community Property Association, which has been reestablished. And that property association was fully reestablished in February this year, and they have a fully elected executive and chairperson and deputy chairperson who have really started engaging fully both with ourselves, Alexkor, PSJV, as well as with Transnet and the Northern Cape government and its Economic Development Agency. To ensure that the interests of the CPA are represented, as indicated by the chair on the 2nd of June, there were 3 representatives of the CPA who are designated board members of the Richtersveld Mining Company. And when the Richtersveld Mining Company is fully active, there would no longer be a necessity for a court-appointed representation to the PSJV. And the reason that is necessary is that there is a deed of settlement and a unanimous resolution which was made a court order, which requires that the PSJV continue to do the mining. And that PSJV is Alexkor is a 51% interest holder, and the Richtersveld Mining Company is a 49% shareholder or interest holder. And that would, once the RMC is fully in place, they would then assume members not as court-appointed members, but as members fully operating through the Richtersveld Mining Company. I hope that clarifies the situation around the Richtersveld Mining Company. The security issues I've attempted to address, and just to indicate that with the increased availability of funds, we will be strengthening the access controls, and there's a necessity to purchase some access controls to ensure that that's improved. And I acknowledge what Honorable Piri is indicating, that perhaps we need to present to the committee a detailed plan in relation to these issues. There was also mention of the inadequate funds. What we are indicating is that there are capital projects which need to be undertaken. So at the moment, the funding will come directly. We're not getting funding from government. It's from the operations here, and it will be phased over a period of time. It's inadequate for 1 year, but it will be phased over a period of time as we build funds over the period. The lessons from that Honorable Piri makes, the lessons in relation that we have learned is that certainly from a mining point of view, that it is important to ensure that the contractual arrangements that we have are able to be adequately observed by the contractors, and ensuring that our contractual arrangements also have the obligations spelled out very clearly to them as to what needs to happen, and there would be consequences, financial consequences, if they do not follow those proper contractual arrangements. Currently, it's a general statement that says they must comply with all legislation, and we're working on new contractual arrangements to address that, to ensure that we detail out some of the issues that we have observed over a period of time, which may not be fully compliant with the Mine Health and Safety Act. And where those compliances do not occur, we immediately remedy it. And we will be improving on our oversight by ensuring that certainly the large operations, we are able to have employees of the PSJV on site at all times to follow up on those issues. The question of the houses, we are discussing the refurbishment of some of the houses, and will be commencing on the refurbishment of or the repair of houses in a phased manner, now that we have the funds to be able to address that. Honorable Malinga also raised the question whether the tender was advertised. It certainly was advertised in both local and national newspapers, and and out of that, as indicated in the presentation, during the presentation, we had 90 or so applicants, of which 54 had met the initial requirements. And those 54 were sent documents to see whether they're fully qualified. And based on the processes, we've then looked at the community mining units and establishing the community mining units, with which we've also doing that in partnership with the Northern Cape Economic Development Agency, because as we develop the mining units, they would be able to also participate in the construction, because a lot of the work that we do here is in fact earth moving, which is very close to the construction. I did mention that the CPA was fully reinstated and started functioning in February of this year. I've answered some of the questions about who's doing the coordination and our relation that Honorable Mkonazi asked. And whether there's an adequate budget. At the moment, we certainly have the funds to undertake the work that we are currently undertaking, currently addressing. And certainly, though the board is interim, we are looking at ensuring the board, and certainly my appointment is interim, that the situation that we're putting in place should have a permanent impact. The revenue situation in relation to the PSJV, the reason that there's a difference that the PSJV does better is because the Alexkor, which presents to Parliament, is a 51% shareholder in the PSJV, and the RMC is the other 49%. So therefore, the amount of the PSJV will always be almost double what the income, if you measure income, the income of the PSJV would be almost double the income of Alexkor because it is a 51% shareholder. Chair, I think I've gone through most of the questions. If I've missed any, I see there are some questions which perhaps the board, Dr. Hanekom may wish to answer, and the questions around cabinet. Certainly, the deputy minister should be able to address that.
Thank you, Prof. Fowler. I'll make some comments that really group together different questions in terms of strategy and governance, which is really the role of the board. But maybe if I can just at the outset say that we're dealing with mining that has taken place for almost 100 years. And it's not something that's in the presentation, but we have historic data going back to 2013 and data about what has been extracted subsequently, but we don't actually even have detailed exploration data to say this is the life of the mine. So we have to assume that the life of the mine is not infinite. We know that no mining operation continues forever, but we have to ensure that the mining that takes place now takes place in a manner that is profitable. And you know from having dealt with the audited annual financial statements over the years that mining has not been profitable. And I think that's why, notwithstanding the very interesting questions and I'm sure completely justified critique, we still, I think, would be of a view that we have really summited some mountains that we thought we never would. So we've really got one role as the board, and that role is to act in the best interests of the company. We don't have any other role. And it's a mining company. Alexkor has certain obligations in terms of the deed of settlement and unanimous resolution that it must fulfill as a result of the award of the Land Claims Court. So, but it is no different to any other company where we're responsible for ensuring that there is a strategy and plan, that we hold management accountable for performance against plan, and that we are accountable. So within the context of it being a mining company, there's obviously a social and labor plan, and as with any other company, we're expected to be a good corporate citizen. And I think a lot of the questions really, or observations, pointed to that, and is obviously something that we must continuously apply our minds to. With respect to the board and 3 resignations, I'm not sure who the 3 resignations are. The appointment was in February 2022, and it was for a year, and was then extended for another year. And obviously the process of how that gets done within the ministry and cabinet is not something that we would have sight of as the board, but I think I can safely say that without exception, we had a choice when we were appointed, when we discovered what the situation was, which isn't about allegations against anyone. It's just about the facts of the matter, that we found a company that was very broken and couldn't even get access to, and still to this date have not got access to, documents, presumably because those documents don't exist. Be that as it may, we could have resigned and just perpetuated the problem, or we could break our backs and do our best to fix it. So again, as I said at the beginning, just to confirm that we don't by any manner of means think that we have waved a magic wand and Alexkor is now in a healthy state, and its subsidiary or its interest in the PSJV is that everything is smooth sailing. There is still an enormous amount of work to do, and from the perspective of the board, it's really critical that there is stability in the mining operation so that it doesn't in any way jeopardize the big economic plans around Bochubai and the green hydrogen project which Professor Paula referred to. The board did establish committees. It did ensure that the corporate plan was put in place, and it's that corporate plan which is the basis for management reporting against plan on a quarterly basis, including the quarterly management accounts. So the acting CFO was really giving you a snapshot of what the current financial situation is as at end of Q1 2023-24. In terms of our obligations for compliance and accountability, our quarterly reports and our annual integrated report and annual financial statements are obviously the statutory requirements that incorporate accounting not just to yourselves and the shareholder, but also to the general public. And as again, to apologize that 2022 is late. You should have had it much earlier in the year. We explained the reasons. The AGM is on the 29th. The external audit is completed. So we look forward to the next meeting with you, which will be reporting on what happened in 2022. As I indicated, it is really prior to the tenure of the current interim board and is extremely helpful because it gives us pointers as to where we should give attention going forwards. And there won't be the same long delay to September next year for the 2023 audit, because the AG has undertaken to complete it by the end of October, and hopefully going forwards, we will meet the deadlines that are set out in the PFMA and the Treasury regulations. I want to just underline again that our compliance also includes ensuring that we have proper internal controls in place, and there's much, this leaves much to be desired. and there is an enormous amount of work that has been done by the CEO and his team in the last 6 months to ensure that there is a complete overhaul of all internal policies and controls in order to ensure that we have best practice in the PSJV and Alexkor. We are also, and I think just to add to what was said by Professor Fowler, we have been operating with a single CEO for Alexkor and the PSJV, and we had agreed to integrate the corporate functions. This is all under discussion with the newly constituted PSJV board. Certainly the deed of settlement and unanimous resolution, I have got no reason to think that they weren't perfectly well-intentioned and maybe even fit for purpose at the time when they were entered into. But right now, to have two structures, two sets of committees, once the RMC is constituted, a third governance body, there are ways to simplify it and ensure that we don't have slippage of the small income that we have at our disposal in covering our overheads. Having said that, I want to make an additional comment on the financial issues and the 51% and 49% interest. The 200 million rand initial cost contribution that was part of the deed of settlement. I don't recall the clause, I think it's 14.3 in the unanimous resolution, and I'm sure members of the committee have it at their disposal. But the initial cash contribution is also a 51%, 49% share. So in fact, in 2023, one would have expected that the 49% share of the RMC would long since have been covered by earnings from the mine. And unfortunately, that has not happened. And it relates to the point that I was making about awaiting the outcome of the SIU investigation. We don't know what they are or aren't covering. We've got no way to expedite it other than to indicate to them that we eagerly are awaiting their final report. But the reality is that the 200 million Honorable Katalia was made available as an initial cash contribution, of which 49% is repayable. And at this stage, it's a very small amount that has actually been repaid from the EBITDA, and there's no return to the RMC on the EBITDA until their share of that initial cash contribution, if that initial cost contribution is covered. So I thought I would just clarify that in case there is any misunderstanding about it. So in terms of where we are financially now, we are sitting with cash in the bank. But that cash in the bank, the things that we have done is paid long outstanding debt. So we're in a much better, the cash in the bank would look even better if there hadn't been long outstanding debt that we had to deal with. Secondly, we have attended to all of the security matters that we regarded as security and maintenance, let me call it, matters that were regarded as fatal risks. We have had the great advantage of having Professor Mehomanis on the board. I'm sure many of you know she was the former DDG for Occupational Health and Safety on Mines at DMRE. So, but there are still significant maintenance issues to be dealt with. There's recap that is needed, and obviously there's going to have to continuously be a balance between reinvesting and ensuring that really the extremely long overdue benefits that should flow to the CPA do indeed start to materialize. So I thought that it was important to raise that, because it really is not insignificant that the company was decimated. And I agree with Professor Fowler. This is not about pointing fingers or blaming anyone. It's the evidence that we found when we arrived there. I'm sure you have many accounting officers who appear in front of you. An accounting officer has an obligation to do certain things. We have also dropped the ball on certain things, missed statutory deadlines, like the statutory deadline to submit our 2022 audited financial statements and integrated report. And then we must explain why that happened. So really, it's about ensuring that there is proper accountability and that we are fully responsible for carrying out our fiduciary responsibilities as expected of us in terms of the PFMA and the Companies Act. Lastly, the Deputy Minister will deal with the issues that belong in the terrain of the department, but just to indicate that the board took a decision when our term was ending in February to say that it was an extremely unstable and volatile period. We didn't yet have the PSJV board reconstituted, and we indicated that we would be available until the end of the financial year, and to ensure that the annual financial statements for 2023 were completed by May the 31st. We are still in a fragile situation. The PSJV board has now been reconstituted and is functioning, but there are many decisions, if you go through the detail of the unanimous resolution, which require the PSJV board to take a decision rather than the Alexkor board on its own. So, for example, we haven't progressed yet with appointing the CEO and CFO, because if it's going to be a joint appointment, it must be an appointment of the PSJV board and not of Alexkor on its own. So, in order to ensure that we don't leave the company in the lurch, certainly those of us who had indicated that we were only available for 1 year, I think, including myself, realized that the timing isn't good to leave right now, but certainly I'm sure that the department will, when this term ends, hopefully be able to appoint a permanent board. Thank you. Deputy Minister, I'm done.
I'm waiting for the chair to allow me to speak, or I can just come in, sir, with your permission.
Yes, come in, Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to answer to a few issues that relate to the shareholder, particularly the questions raised by Honorable Kachalia and Honorable Bushongo on the board and the interim nature and whether the cabinet has approved or not approved. So I'll start there. The board is interim, as already responded to you, and the minister has a prerogative to appoint an interim board as and when that need arises. And let me just chronologize the events since the minister arrived in 2018, as already said and alluded to by Honorable Mhlong. After arriving, the minister found a board in place and a structure in place. But by September 2019, a year after, the minister then realized that there are challenges in the entities and retired the entire board. And in September 2019 to 2020 February, the minister appointed Mr. Lloyd McParty as administrator in place of the board for a period of 6 months, really to see if because I mean that happens when the structure is faced with governance and organizational challenges, and administrator was then put in. And then thereafter, then in June 2020, the CEO Lemogang Pitso was then appointed as an accounting authority, a point that was alluded to until his resignation in January 2022. In February, then this board that is now before you, 2022, was then appointed as an interim board. And then for a period of 1 year. And a year ended in February 2023, and the minister saw the need to then retain it because they were now achieving the objective of stabilizing the company, and then therefore extended them by another year, which is ending in 2024 February. When you appoint an interim board, you don't have to go to the cabinet. So there's no cabinet requirement. You are dealing with a crisis that is pending at that moment that both the cabinet, the Companies Act and other prescripts then allows the minister to intervene, as is the case now with the Post Bank, the board being disestablished and administrator being put in. When the Minister of Tourism also went in the tourism, he also did the same. And until you see stability, then you can then appoint a permanent board for a period of 3 years as the Companies Act.
I don't know whether it's in my side, the Deputy Minister just disappeared.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear him clearly, Chair.
There have been, it's your gadget, Chair, probably. So therefore, this is the first extension of the current board. And then come 2022, with the stability that we have also appreciated, that we have to look at the permanence, because what you wanted was a team to come in and fix the problem. And then once you get the right team, keep it until you know that the stabilization phase has been achieved. From stabilization phase, obviously, there's a second phase called sustainability, where now you want to see the business being sustained. And I think, as the CEO said, that it remains a challenge that the current achievements do not reverse. And then obviously, as we go to 2024, whoever are the team members that are coming in for 3 years and the permanent management that will have been resolved by then, that will then take the organization forward, taking over from the phase of stability to the phase of sustainability, whatever programs that will have started under sustainability in the phase 2, then going to phase 3, which is your growth, and this is what exactly happened. So we do, and as a minister or as a government, whenever you get appointed to a department, you take everything in succession. Whatever the challenges that were there, you don't complain and say who was there. You then realize that Here we need to fix. Here we need people. You start with an administrator, failed, did not achieve. You went to the former CEO as an accounting authority. It did not work until this board was brought in place. And then I think we just want really to thank them for carrying the load. I know that some of them wanted to go after a year. Honorable Kachalia, no one resigned. It was verbally said, and we had engagements and discussions with them to really take us through to final stability and entering the sustainability period, which they have now beginning to enter. But sustainability still has issues that we still have to ramp up and ensure that they are all resolved as you enter the sustainability and towards the growth. Then the other issue is, Honorable Kajala, I see you are complaining that all questions that you have asked, the 8 specific with the figures attached to them and programs that were supposed to have been paid for the purpose of ensuring that the communities are the beneficiaries of this. And I see you have resolved that you will then send those questions to the secretary of the committee, who will then pass them over to the CEO and the team, who will then have to give you those accurate answers as well. As I agree with you that definitely they might have not engaged fully on them, but because of time now, we do that questionnaire so that they can respond and to all the figures that you have attached, and then to see if the community is a beneficiary. There's one issue that amongst the questions you have raised is the issue of why is the township and then other facilities not yet transferred to the municipality. The municipality is refusing to take over those functions and then the assets because they say, and justifiably so, that the conditions of the infrastructure and the facilities is so bad, so dilapidated, and they will not have money in the next foreseeable future to can then be the one fixing them. They are asking, fix all those things and transfer them only when they are in conditions that the municipality can take over, and then they'll take over the maintenance of something, but they will not have money to fix the current infrastructure challenges that comes with these particular facilities. So those is an ongoing discussion as to why some of the things are not moving, because municipality on one hand correctly so says no, and they are raising fundamental issues that we think they are valid and cannot just be dismissed and then imposed and then just transfer. But otherwise, the figures that you have said, they will then be answered in that particular order. And there was an issue of the reports. Thank you, Honorable Dumete, that you accepted my note. Definitely, after the AGM, which is on the 29th of September next week, the 2021-2022 reports, including the annual reports, the financial aspects of it, the Auditor General's opinions, now that they are available, will definitely be brought to Parliament as soon as the AGM has looked at them and passed them through. And then we can then begin to do what's in and on issues of oversight there. And definitely you could then continue raising those issues. Why this delay, and I think they might have answered it as management and the board, is because the AG refused to touch the books of Alexkor at some point for a period of 6 to 8 months, saying that if they do so, Alexkor will not be able to pay the AG fees, and therefore it got stalemate on that issue, and hence the delay of the 2021-2022. But because now Alexkor was stabilizing and they were assuring payments, and then indeed those payments were done, the AG started work on it. It's only now that the AG has given us a report just in August, the end of August. Hence, in September, immediately after that, there's an AGM, which will then go through all those reports, and they will then come to Parliament in that order. The 2022-2023 reports, The AG has just started on them, and they said they will be finished by the end of October, hopefully. And once those report of 2022-2023 is done in October, we'll definitely also bring it to Parliament, and so that then both years that were outstanding and with all the issues in those years are done, and we can now focus on the 2023-2024 before the end of the term, so that Alexkor, when we go to the 7th administration, it goes having been compliant in as far as its finances, audited finances, and the annual report is concerned. So that is the assurance that we still give. We'll push, we'll ensure. But the AG, obviously, if the delay in October, it will be an impact on the timelines. But we're just hopeful that they will have delivered by the end of October, so that in November we have an AGM for that, and we are as fully compliant. Then there's an issue of the operating model that the CEO spoke of, that the department is still processing and towards finalization, but obviously engaging with the board and the management so that we could all agree on that operating model. The future of Alexkor, as predicted by a report, it looks very okay. For the next 5 to 20 years, definitely you will be having a company as a going concern, and then definitely, Chair, as we said, that we didn't want Alexkor to suffer on or go into a business risk of any kind, and eventually leading to either way, bailing it out or it being taken by the private sector. It looks very okay for the next 5 to 20 years. And beyond, also, when we go to the growth, there are issues that the report is also suggesting. But obviously, from that report, we'll then develop what you call the turnaround strategy or plan that is as futuristic, going beyond now until over 20 years. That will then give hope that Alexkor still has a role to play in the economy as an economic contributor, but also for employment opportunities with the environment in that area, with the closing of Transex and DPS that is now impacting on unemployment figures. But then the Buchu Bay Port Harbor, I mean, it's coming in, but also the green energy, hydrogen energy by Sasol is another spinner that is coming in the area. And we'll also be looking at issues of the green economy for Alexkor to participate in them as part of that particular sustaining and growing the business going forward. So, Chair, with that, I just wanted really to then respond to those issues that are more the shareholder side, and thanking the honorable members for their comments, the appreciation, and welcoming of the report, short and brief as it may be. But the other two reports will come in as soon as the first AGM comes, and the second one as soon as the second AGM is done. You could then begin to look at some sensitive issues that some of you might have wanted to ask, and let's wait for that particular period. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, sir. Honorable members, that is the response from the Honorable Deputy Minister and the entire Alexkor team. And now I think we have exhausted our questions. I'm tempted to release them and thank them for coming, unless there is somebody who had a very urgent matter. But on the questions that I've already asked, I'm not opening for second bite, because I saw in the chat some people were claiming that their question have not been properly captured. I just want to check with the honorable members if they are not vehemently opposed to me releasing Alexkor. One, two, three, four, five. Therefore, I think everybody is covered. Then let me take this opportunity to thank Alexkor Executive and the board, including the ministry led by the Honorable Deputy Minister. And we also hope that things will be improving more than the report we've got as time goes. We appreciate with the work done so far and hope that that kind of progressive work done will be deepened as we continue in our endeavor to improve the performance of these entities. Thank you so much, Alexkor leadership. And I want to take this opportunity to release you from now so that we go to the next part of our agenda.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Honorable members, now let's go to the secretary to check if we will be having any other matter.
Chair,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just for the chair to update them on that second item of the deliberation we're supposed to add.
Okay. Honorable members, we have already had the sessions where the Speaker's office instructed this committee to investigate the allegations by the former DG of the Department of Public Enterprises, allegations that implicated our minister. We had a legal advice from the Parliament Legal Department that help us as to how to embark on that particular responsibility. Centrally to that was to allow the minister to respond in writing at the beginning based on the allegation of it. The minister did that. And then after that, we also receive a presentation from the former DG presented to the committee. After we have received that, we also go back to the minister last week, where the minister presented in the portfolio committee his part. Now, what we are expected as a committee is to make a determination, but as we stand now, we still have to get the the information from the minister, who has promised in his presentation last week that he will present, he will send those documents to us based also on the questions that were raised by members. We decided to allow the minister this week to send those documents to us so that we are in a position to call a meeting of the portfolio committee where we will be interacting with all that particular information and make our determination. I just wanted to put everybody on the same wavelength of the process. We expect the minister to send those documents. We have formally returned to the minister to provide us with those necessary documents he himself committed to send to the committee. After that, perhaps we will be in a position to make our determination. We want this process to be fast-tracked because it's a bit behind schedule. Therefore, we hope that by next week, we'll be in a position to do so. Members might be called for this session even during the break next week. That is, we are going towards a break this end of the week. Therefore, we can continue even if it's during the recess to fast-track the process and finish it. I wanted just to put everybody on the same wavelength in relation to that. That's all. I don't think there is any question on that. I just wanted to make everybody aware where we are in relation to the process. Is there any other matter Mr. Muchumi?
No, Chair. Oh, Chairperson, perhaps just to put it on record, because I did inform the members via email that that study tour that we intended to take was not approved by the Chief Whip and the House Chair due to the insufficient funds and a lack of resources within Parliament. Yeah, so that's where we stand with regards to the trip. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. I'm sorry, members, if we have already packed our bags. Unfortunately, the financial situation in Parliament could not allow us to embark on that trip. With those words, I would love to take this opportunity to thank you for participating in this meeting. And the meeting now is adjourned. Thank you, honorable members.